Time for regime change with the Duras sisters. Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games. And today we're going to be unboxing the House of Duras Klingon expansion from Star Trek Away Missions by Gale Force 9. Now this was one of my favourite games of 2023, a really fun, quick skirmish little game over a series of rounds where you fulfill objectives and try and score the most victory points. It's all set after the Battle of Wolf 359, which is one of the best episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation ever made, which was, of course, called The Best of Both Worlds, in which the Federation battled the Borg. And what this setting is that all the factions of the Federation are coming in to kind of pick from the scraps of the Battle of Wolf 359, which is where the Borg decimated the Federation. Now, this is not being unboxed for the very first time, unfortunately, because Muggins here forgot to press the record button. So I opened it without realizing that I hadn't recorded, and I was talking nonsense for a good 30-40 minutes before I realized. So this essentially is take 2 of the unboxing. But nevertheless, let's continue and see what we have inside. So, of course, the Duras sisters are a very interesting faction. They're the second Klingon faction. But in Star Trek lore, there was a Klingon civil war. There was Gowron, who was to become the Chancellor of the Klingon Empire, but also the Duras sisters, which were basically the power behind the potential throne, as it were. They were great villain characters in the sense that the House of Duras had one son that Worf had killed, and unbeknownst to them, they had a younger son that the 2 older Duras sisters were kind of trying to condition and groom for leadership. Of course, basically, he was going to do what they told. The Klingon Empire is still a kind of a sexist kind of one where they wouldn't have a female chancellor, but the 2 Duras sisters, of course, want to be in power. So their whole thing was just scheming to take over the entire empire. But anyway, this core mission, of course, is restore honor. So if none of your commanded characters with treachery are neutralized, and all of them have honor at the end of the game, you score 5 points, and per character, of course, and you score 30 points if none of them have it. And you have the arms supply deal. So, of course, the Duras sisters are akin to terrorists in that they were constantly plotting the downfall of the Klingon Empire and doing all sorts of dirty deals to kind of fund and fulfill their coup. So place any weapon cards discarded from arms deals missions on this card, and you score 10 points for each non-melee weapon equipment card on this card at the end of the game. And you take a treachery skill test at an operations terminal. If passed, place a weapon card from your hand on this card. And if the character's in the transporter room, place up to 4 weapon cards instead. So this is an interesting way that you're at Wolf 359 just to kind of get all the weapons. We have here the actual cards, and we have here the tokens. So as you can see, I haven't punched them out yet, but you have 5 distinct characters. So you have Bator and Kavit. So Bator, of course, is one of the sisters. And you have Lursa, which is the other sister, and Tilok. And you have, of course, Toral. So again, you can see that their stats are interesting. So we'll just zoom in a little bit, and we'll see that Toral, of course, has 1 attack, 2 defense, 1 skill, and has lots of movement. So they're not the most powerful, but nevertheless, you do get a little bit of lore. So, named for his grandfather, Toral is the illegitimate son of Duras. So, when Duras died at the hands of Worf, his aunts Lursa and Bator staked his claim to his father's challenge for the chancellorship of the Klingon Empire. So this is Toral. This is why his stats aren't very good, because he's technically only a teenager in the movie, or in the TV series. So I didn't realize that he was the one that Lursa and Bator were trying to push forward. He's obviously grown up a little bit because he was a child in the, I'd say he was about 15 or 16 in the TV series. But very interesting. Nice little touch that they have him here. You have, of course, the batlets and the Klingon daggers. You have here, I believe, the hacked computer console, and you have, of course, the very famous image. They use this image over and over and over again in all the Star Trek episodes. I think it's from one of the Star Trek films, but whenever a Klingon ship blew up anywhere at any point, they would always have this cool image of Klingons running through and getting either sucked out into space or enveloped by a fireball. But I've seen this so many times in different episodes. And you have here, of course, on the other side, Honor. You have the corrupt system files, which is what that is, illicit explosives, and poison. So these are all poisoned daggers. You have Lursa, of course, which is one of the two sisters, and a nice little aspects here, so you can kind of see some of her best one-liners here, like, "This is not a threat, Captain, just an unfortunate truth." You have Telok, who served the House of Duras as a guard. He finds the unpredictability of the two sisters a constant irritation. So, again, it's nice that Gale Force 9 have, they haven't just thrown a random kind of character out at you. They've given you a little bit of backstory so you can kind of be immersed into the game a little bit more. And we have here, of course, Betor, which I think is the older of the two sisters and probably the smarter of the two, and Kavit. And Kavit is a consummate professional who's just basically an assassin. And you have Betor, who, of course, is sharing some of the fantastic quotes with Lursa. So these are going to be a really fun faction to play with, especially against Worf, because Worf does not like the House of Duras. We have here the actual minis that I'm throwing away. So we have here, of course, we have Kavit, who would be the assassin. So as you can see here, he has this Klingon disruptor and the actual poisoned dagger. So again, ready for action, really cool little mini. You have here Telok, who again is another professional, that he's got a rifle disruptor, ready for action in full Klingon garb. And you have here, of course, the pretender to the throne. So I didn't actually notice it, but you can see that he has no beard because he's only a child. So this is Toral, the illegitimate son of Duras that the Lursa and Betor tried to groom for chancellorship for the Klingon Empire because they couldn't take it over themselves. And you have here, of course, the two sisters, Betor, of course, being the actual looker, this one, and Lursa being the brains, although both are equally devious and sneaky. But a really cool little set to get. And we have here, of course, the mission cards and the support decks. So we'll have a look at some of these. Now, I believe one, of course, is a starting deck, and the other is the advanced deck. So you kind of, what's recommended is you play with the starting deck, you get to learn the faction, and then once you feel a bit more kind of confident, you basically create your own deck with your own characters. So the Klingons are always great fun because the original Klingons, you just go around slaughtering everything. I remember Tony was playing the Klingons and all he had to do was just kill everything. He had great fun. Poor old Jack was the Federation, who's trying to tech everything. Eric was the Romulans, who was just basically trying to steal everything, and I was the Borg, who was just trying to assimilate everything. Very fun game, and I think I won that one, if it's the one I'm thinking of. So anyway, regardless, I'm digressing. So we have the mission deck here. So you have weapons testing. So you score this card when one or two of your characters causes 2 or more damage with an attack action using a weapon that is not a melee weapon. So again, you're just trying to score these cards as much as possible, and the Klingons being Klingons, you're going out and engaging. So you have here Lursa. Take a treachery skill test with a character at a command terminal in the armory. If passed, discard any or all weapon equipment cards from this character and any adjacent friendly characters, and score this card if you discarded 3 or more cards. So of course they're mad trying to find weapons for their war. So you have 2 under the table deals. You have survival of the fittest, which is an end game, so you score this card at the end of the game if all your commander characters are Klingons with treachery and none of them are neutralized. You have steel weapons technology. So again, I think these are all images from the Klingon Civil War, because that was a great few episodes in the in the Star Trek The Next Generation series, where Worf really came into his own. He left the Federation for a little bit to fight in the Civil War, from what I remember. And of course, stealing trilithium, because the House of Duras, essentially being a terrorist organization, is scavenging everything they can. You have stash contraband. So, of course, here you have them doing illicit deals. You have plant explosives. So, that's very interesting, because I remember that's the Klingon Chancellor, the old one, who had died. So there was an explosives there. You have plant evidence of honor. So obviously this is the Klingon kind of status screen. You have manipulate medical evidence. Now I remember as well, this is one of the reasons Worf didn't like Lursa and B'Etor, because they did deals with the Romulans, who would literally be the blood enemies of the Klingons. So you can see here Selena, who is in another one of Guild Forces 9's expansions, actually here doing a deal with them. You have Honor and Glory, so you've Lursa and B'Etor, I think, putting forward Taylor as the candidate for the Chancellor. You have falsify scientific evidence, so again, them being, they're not so nice. You have the fake heroics. Now, this was the original son of Duras, and you have here the Klingon Chancellor at the time. It was tradition for them to make sure he was dead. So what they would do is they would come up to a pain stick and they'd kind of jab him with it to make sure he didn't react or move. So any kind of Chancellor candidates would come forward and do it. So what's his name? Gowron, I think, came up first and prodded him, make sure he was dead. The next guy prodded him, make sure he was dead. And Duras, just because he's a douche, just really rammed it in there and twisted it, kind of to give a real essence that the character is not a nice guy, a real slimy fella. So yeah, that's just him kind of mutilating and torturing a corpse. You have claim honor, so that of course is Taylor and his two sisters. So the initial episode had Duras, he died, and later on the two sisters found an illegitimate son and put forward him as the rightful chancellor to the Klingon Empire. And you have backroom dealing, of course, here, where you saw them dealing with the Romulans. I believe the Romulans were supplying them with arms for their civil war. And you have arrange a rendezvous. Of course, I think this was when Lursa tried to either stab or poison Picard. And I remember at another point she tried to seduce one of them as well. So yeah, this is the Klingon starter deck. So you use these cards for your first few games. So of course here are the support decks, and you have the different support cards. So you have a weapons crate. So discard this card to supply. To check your supply deck for a weapon equipment card, and of course you have the Romulans, which are of course supplying them. You have the Disruptor Rifle. Now this is an interesting one. I recognize this episode from Deep Space Nine because it was a Chief O'Brien episode. This guy was a weapons dealer that Chief O'Brien was undercover trying to expose, and you have here the Klingon Disruptor Rifle. Now, I know obviously they're using this because it's an excellent way of communicating what the actual card is and what the actual rifle is, but it's cool that they have a Deep Space Nine episode here that Miles O'Brien was in, and you have the Sniper Rifle, same episode again, because your man was an arms dealer. You have illicit explosives, so again, Klingons blowing up. You have here the Poisoned Blade, and you have the Treachery of Duras. I remember now, this is Lursa and B'Etor had captured Worf at one point, and Lursa was trying to put the charm on, and Worf wasn't having it, you know. I'm not surprised, because the Duras family had actually killed his mate. The mother of his son, Alexander, was killed by Duras, the older brother. So Worf, in an act of vengeance, killed him, which led to this whole happy family situation between them. So in the event, the Sisters of Duras may only be played during B'Etor or Duras's activation. Choose one of the following. Recover up to 2 damage or remove 1 condition token from B'Etor or Lursa, and both sisters get a take cover token. Or interrupt, draw 3 support cards. So that's a very interesting card for them. You have here the Power of Duras with the 2 sisters. You have taking credit, again, where they're trying to manipulate Picard, and you can see from Patrick Stewart's face, he was having none of it. You have here Stolen Valor, so this is where they present the illegitimate son. Stolen Honor, again, like, it's interesting because you can see that he's really only an adolescent, and that a real pretender to the throne. And you have Qapla', which is kind of the Klingon salute, which is Worf, I believe, at the council. That's probably his brother Kurn. So that was an interesting one where Kurn actually sat on the council. You have no honor in weakness. I think I remember this Klingon. He was in the very first series of Star Trek The Next Generation, and he was one of 3 Klingons that the Federation rescued. And basically, the Klingon Empire is very big into their honor. These guys were kind of fundamentalists in their belief in honor, and they wanted to kickstart, I think, a war between the Federation and the Klingon Empire in order to kind of get things going again. But there was no honor and weakness, so the 3 of them went on a kind of a suicide mission in the Enterprise and beckoned Worf to join them because he had as much a belief in honor as they did. So if I'm correct, that's one of the characters from that Star Trek episode. So pretty cool that they've gotten all these images from all over the place to kind of add to this. And of course, one of my favorite things about this game is just all the memories it brings back from seeing these cool little images on the cards. So you have event, mistaken honor. Play when a hostile character with honor takes an attack action against a friendly Klingon character with treachery. The friendly character gains honor, or use it as an interrupt. Select a friendly character with treachery. They roll an additional die for all medical or diplomacy skill tests until the end of this activation. You have here first strike, so again, this is part of the Klingon Civil War. You have the Disruptor Bombardment, so of course this is the Klingon bird of prey, or possibly the bigger version of it, firing off disruptors. And the Death Yell. Now, I remember this scene. You can't see her, but this is Worf's mate during the first episode where Duras killed Worf's wife. She was kind of a Federation ambassador. No one knew, but herself and Worf had a child together. Worf, because he wanted to do the right and honourable thing, wanted to marry her. She wasn't too keen on it, but that was just kind of the drama of the episode. But Worf came back to her quarters to talk to her and found her dead. She was assassinated by the Duras. Worf, of course, got upset, as you would, and embarked on a rite of vengeance. Killed Duras, and as far as the Klingons were concerned, that was fine. That's business as usual. The Federation and Picard were a little bit upset because one of their security officer pretty much killed one of the delegates for the next Klingon Empire. But I remember this was the moment when Worf discovered his mate and yelled. Basically, Klingons, they scream when a loved one or a comrade dies to warn Sto-vel-Kor and all their enemies that a new warrior is coming. But yeah, you had to really feel for Worf there. And you have betrayal of trust. So of course this is interesting. This is a really cool scene where you had warriors from both the House of Duras and the House of Gowron, that they would share a drink. They'd murder each other, but if they met, they'd share a drink and kind of share in glorious battle. These would be the advanced support decks. So I'm just going to put these aside. Because I want to kind of keep them separate for when we play and review it. So the House of Duras, of course, seems very much fun. A nice little derivative of the Klingons. So the support deck here, you have the Yan, which of course is the Klingon sword. You don't see it that much, but it's always there. You have the sniper rifle, you have the poison blade, illicit explosives, the bat'leth. Now this, of course, was such a cool kind of two-handed blade that Worf excelled at in Star Trek The Next Generation. In Deep Space Nine, he kind of developed a new skill with 2 kind of cool little dagger things, but the bat'leth was his main weapon during The Next Generation. You have here the Test of Blood, and you have here Michael O'Reilly as Gowron. One of the reasons he was cast is he had this really cool dead-eye look. He just, I don't know, he peeled back his eyelids and just gave you this dead Clint Eastwood sinister look. A really fun character, but that look there is the reason Michael O'Reilly was cast, and the reason I think Gowron was brought back so many times, because he just had this dead-eyed look that he would throw at anyone who annoyed him. You have Selena here, of course, by Denise Crosby playing her. One of the best ways a character came back. She was the illicit daughter of Tasha Yar, but of course, anyway, sorry, I'm going into too much detail again. But this is from the episode where she was giving illegal arms shipments to the Duras sisters. You have a surprise attack, again from the Klingon Civil War, so this Klingon got ambushed from both sides. You have a stab in the back, so I presume this was something to do with the High Council. I think that's perhaps where they killed the younger son of Duras. You have skulking. You have shout louder. Now, I remember this episode. This is an excellent episode. Riker was on an exchange program to a Klingon ship. So there was one point where a Klingon officer served on the Enterprise, and of course they returned the favor. Riker, because he's just badass, decided to be the executive officer for the captain. Excellent episode, because the captain was a bit of a hothead. He met the Federation ship, flew away, and discovered that there was something kind of growing on the ship that was going to destroy it, that they were going to be kind of blown up in, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours. And he thought that the Federation did it on purpose and was going to go back and destroy the Enterprise. He expected Riker, as his first officer, to be a professional and join and die with the crew, and Riker agreed because he is a professional and because it was a question of honor. Now, obviously, Riker wasn't going to stand by and let the Enterprise be destroyed, so what he did is he, through the machinations, and this was a great episode where you really learned about Klingon culture, overthrew the captain and took command and, calmed things down. It was actually brilliant, because at the end he was still going to confront the Enterprise, but he made the Enterprise surrender to him. So the Enterprise surrendered unconditionally. They fixed the problem, and everyone got to live without this hothead kind of going mad. But this moment here was excellent, because you don't relinquish command. So even though Riker had taken over command, he was going to relinquish command to the captain. He refused to budge, because that's what a Klingon warrior wouldn't do. So the captain, of course, clocked him. But it was just a great little touch to the episode. So I'm delighted that they used this image here, especially for Shout Louder, because that captain was good at shouting. You have here the rights of succession. So you have Talor here, of course, staking his claim. You have the Qapla', No Honor and Weakness, the Disruptor Bombardment, the Death Yell, the Corrupt System Files, of course. Yes, I remember now. So this is definitely from the 3 Klingons. They were trying to steal information, which forced Worf to kind of interject, because they were trying to, I don't know what they were at. They were hacking. They were up to badness. But it was 3 Klingon warriors that they came across, and this security officer had to kind of come in. They killed him and then went on a rampage throughout the ship. You have Charge, which with Gowron doing his thing. You have Brute Force, and you have A Matter of Honor, which of course is Gowron and Worf. It's interesting, the two of them were great friends during the Civil War, but became enemies in the Deep Space Nine series, which is a pity. Gowron was an excellent character, but towards the end, he was just in charge too long and became a kind of not the best kind of Chancellor anymore. And we have here some more mission decks. We'll have a look at these. So the Blood Flows. Score this card if each player has had at least one character incapacitated or neutralized this round. And you get a full 20 points for that. So, of course, you have here an image of a Klingon with a blade lodged in his head. You've Take the Transporter Room, so you get 20 points for that. You've Secure New Technology, 30 points. Rite of Vengeance. This was Worf when he killed Duras, because I remember he took off his comm badge and he took off his sash, because it was a matter of personal honor. And yeah, he stuck the battlet into his head. But a really cool episode. But yeah, the Rite of Vengeance is a perfect thing. Kill the Dishonorable Patak. So Patak is not a very nice word. That's not something you'd call someone. Definitely not something you call someone's mother. Anyway, you kill them if you... So you score this card. One of your Klingon characters uses a melee weapon to neutralize a character that does not have honor. So a really cool named little card here, and you get a full 10 victory points for it. You have Honorable Battle, 5 points. Honor the fallen enemy. Honor even in death. So you have a better image here of the pain sticks that they were sticking into the old Chancellor. So that's Duras just doing it to him, but I'd say that was when Gowron was doing it to him, just to make sure that the guy was dead. You have the Blood Oath, and this is where Worf is using the Klingon knife to kind of cut his hand to secure his oath. And you have Abduction, of course. So this is where Worf was kidnapped by Lursa and B'Etor, and they were trying to seduce him. As you can see, he's wearing the uniform of a member of the Klingon Empire. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was everything that is in the House of Duras expansion pack for Star Trek Away Missions. Again, great fan service, a really fun little expansion, and one I'm very much looking forward to trying. So as always, if you enjoy these videos, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff, and until next time, good luck, God bless,